Hi, I'm Pastor Cheryl Pickford. Thank you so much for joining me today for this message titled Problems. Now, I came across this meme the other day on Facebook, and I think it applies very well to today's message, so I'm going to read it and share it with you. It goes like this: I asked for strength, and God gave me difficulties to make me strong. I asked for wisdom, and God gave me problems to solve. I asked for courage, and God gave me dangers to overcome. I asked for patience, and God placed me in situations where I was forced to wait. I asked for love, and God gave me troubled people to help. I asked for favor, and God gave me opportunities. I asked for everything so I could enjoy life. Instead, He gave me life so I could enjoy everything. I received nothing I wanted. I received everything I needed. Trust in God. Now, Jesus said in John 16:33, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. You could also say, in this world you will have problems. And many times the answer to our prayers arrive wrapped in what we perceive to be a problem. Trust that God will use everything for His final purpose, which is to make us more and more like Jesus. So today, I'm going to talk about problems. Some problems help us grow. Some problems come from our own doing, and the importance of having a biblical response to the problems that we encounter. But first, please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this message. Lord, please anoint my words and anoint the ears of those who hear this message. Let it touch lives and change hearts for eternity. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, there's an old saying that you probably have heard. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Sometimes problems feel like that. Problems help us grow by testing our faith, opening up opportunities to serve, and maybe confirmation that, we are living for Christ. Now in Genesis, we see Abram going to Egypt to find food because there was a famine in the land. Abram didn't question God's leading when facing this difficulty. This was a test of Abram's faith, and he passed. He didn't throw a fit and doubt God's care for him. Many believers find that when they decide to follow God, they immediately encounter great obstacles. It seems that the enemy of your soul leaves you alone while you're still in Satan's camp, but will pull out all the stops to try and shipwreck your faith before it has a chance to grow much at all. Times of testing and problems will come. We don't always know why they come, but we know God has a purpose for all the testing. Now, I got to practice this last summer. While we were away from home on a camping trip, a thunderstorm knocked out power to our house, and it tripped the breaker to our freezer. The rest of the power was restored, but unfortunately, the freezer was off for days. Our daughter happened to drop in to check on the house and noticed a smelly puddle on the garage floor. Everything had thawed. Well, bless her heart, she cleaned up the mess for us. We were disappointed that this happened, and all of our stored frozen food was gone, but grateful that she was there and took care of the problem for us. But a few days later, the freezer door in our travel trailer refrigerator failed to latch, and everything in there melted too and had to be thrown away. I remember asking, "Okay, what are you trying to teach me, Lord?" I recall choosing to trust Him instead of fretting about the losses. I think I passed the test. The next time that you enter a test, don't try to second guess what God is doing. Ask him what lesson he's trying to teach you through the problem. Now, have you ever heard the story of the little girl who was given the task of cleaning out a horse stall that was filled to the brim with horse manure? She gleefully grabbed the shovel and started digging. When asked why she was so happy, she replied, "With all this manure, there has to be a pony in here somewhere." What others saw as a problem, she saw as an opportunity. Sometimes when we encounter problems, they open up opportunities for service. The Apostle Paul was jailed for spreading the gospel. Being in prison would cause many people to become bitter, angry at God, or simply give up. But look at Philippians 1, verse 12. "Now I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that what's happened to me has actually served to advance the gospel." See, despite being in prison, Paul saw it as one more opportunity to spread the good news of Christ. Paul realized that his current circumstances weren't as important as what he did with them. Turning a bad situation into a good one, he reached out to the Roman soldiers who made up the palace guard and encouraged those Christians who were afraid of persecution. Well, we may not be in prison, but we still have lots of opportunities to be discouraged. These can be times of indecision, financial burdens, family conflict, church conflict, or the loss of our jobs. How we act in these situations will reflect what we believe. Like Paul, we should look for ways to demonstrate our faith, even in bad situations. Whether or not the situation improves, your faith will grow stronger. And sometimes the problems that we encounter are a sign that we are living for Christ. Some people say that troubles are the result of sin or a lack of faith. But Paul teaches that problems may be a part of God's plan for believers. Look at 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 5. I'm reading from the Voice translation. "Your sufferings prove that God's judgment is right. The result, your sufferings have made you worthy of the kingdom of God, which is the very reason why you are suffering in the first place." Now, my daughter was diagnosed with endometriosis when she was a teenager. Well-meaning women from our church wrongly told her she just didn't have enough faith to be healed, placing the blame and guilt for the illness on her. Years later, when she was in grad school, she underwent surgery to remove the scarring and problematic tissue. The surgeon was dumbfounded when he opened her up. There was no sign of endo at all. God miraculously healed her, and she was able to walk at graduation a few days following the surgery and share the news with everyone. She was able to be a living testimony that our God still miraculously heals. Our problems can help us look upward and forward instead of inward. They can build strong character, and they can provide us with opportunities to comfort others who are also struggling. God doesn't waste anything. Here's another example. Our family went through a rough patch when our son was a teenager, and I was in constant prayer for him through those dark, challenging days. At the end of the battle, God brought him back to us, and the relationship has been restored. Those tears and hours in prayer were not wasted. And God has placed many struggling parents of wayward children in my path since then, and I've been able to share my story and encourage them as they wait for their victory and keep their hope in Christ. Your problems may be an indication that you are taking a stand for Christ. The enemy usually leaves you alone if you're a nominal believer. But when you start storming the gates of hell and rescuing people from darkness, Satan takes notice. But take heart. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. Jesus is fighting for you. Sometimes, however, our problems are of our own making. Joyce Meyer once said, "Don't get in the prayer line to lose weight if you aren't willing to stop eating donuts." Sometimes we can create our own problems. We can also create problems when we take things into our own hands instead of waiting for God. Abram and Sarai had been promised that their descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the sky. But Sarai's childbearing years had long passed. In frustration, she decided to take matters into her own hands and give God a little help. Her solution was to give her maid Hagar to Abraham as his second wife. "Well, since the Lord has given me no children," Sarai said, "you may sleep with my servant girl, and her children shall be mine." Well, Abram agreed, and the problems began. Instead of waiting patiently for God's solution, Sarai took matters into her own hands by giving Hagar to Abram. She had trouble believing God's promise, and out of this lack of faith came a series of problems. When we take over for God, trying to make His promise come true through efforts that are not in line with His specific directions, we can find ourselves in all sorts of problems. When we ask God for something and have to wait, it's a temptation to take matters into our own hands and interfere with God's plans. And although Sarai arranged for Hagar to have a child by Abram, she later blamed Abram for the results. She struck out in frustration and accused him, rather than admitting she'd been in error and asking for forgiveness. She despised the child and his mother and mistreated them to the point that Hagar ran away. Sometimes, when we are surrounded by problems that we created, we end up questioning God's purpose for our life. Many people think that believing in God protects them from troubles. When problems arise, they question God's goodness and justice. If that were so, all believers would be rich, healthy, and prosperous. That just isn't reality. Now, Job was such a godly man that God actually bragged about him to Satan. So Satan challenged God to a test. Satan said, "Well, he only serves you because you're blessing him. Take away his wealth and family and see what he does." So God allowed Job's children to die in a tornado and thieves to steal his wealth. And Job still praised God. So Satan issued another challenge. "All right, take away Job's health and watch him curse you." So God allowed Job's health to fail. His wife even encouraged Job to curse God and die. But Job remained faithful. In the end, God restored his family and fortunes, but Job went through lots of troubles and problems before this happened. Job's message is that you should never give up on God, because He allows you to have bad experiences. Faith in God does not guarantee personal prosperity, and lack of faith does not guarantee troubles in this life. God is capable of rescuing us from suffering, but He may also allow suffering for reasons that we cannot understand. It is Satan's strategy to get us to doubt God in this moment. If we always know why we are suffering, our faith would have no room to grow. So we've seen that some problems help us grow, and some problems are of our own doing. Now we're going to look at how God wants us to respond to these problems. Look at James chapter 1, verses 2 to 4, and I'm reading from the New International Version. "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Problems and troubles are inevitable. Notice James doesn't say, if you face trials, excuse me. Notice James It doesn't say if you face trials, but whenever you face them. He assumes that we will all have trials and that it's possible to profit from them. The point is not to pretend to be happy when we face pain, but to have a positive outlook because of what trials can produce in our life. James tells us to turn our trials and problems into times of learning. Tough times can teach us perseverance. And we can expect to grow as a result of our problems. We can't really know the depth of our character until we see how we react under pressure. It's easy to be kind to others when everything's going well, but can we still be kind when others are treating us unfairly? God wants to make us mature and complete, not to keep us from all pain. Instead of complaining about our struggles, we should see them as opportunities for growth. Thank God for promising to be with you in tough times. Ask Him to help you solve your problems or to give you the strength to endure them. Then be patient. God will not leave you alone with your problems. He will stay close and help you grow. One of my favorite scriptures is Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. God works in all things, not just isolated incidents, for our good. This does not mean that all that happens to us is good. Evil's prevalent in our fallen world, but God is able to turn every single circumstance around for our long-range good. You see, God is more interested in our holiness than our happiness. He's not working to make us happy. He's working to fulfill His purpose. And notice that this promise is not for everyone. It can be claimed only by those who love God and are called according to His purpose. Those who are called are those the Holy Spirit convinces and enables to receive Christ. Such people have a new perspective, a new mindset of life. They trust in God, not in life's treasures. They look for their security in heaven, not on earth. And they learn to accept, not resent, pain and persecution because God is with them. God works all things together for good for those who are believers in Jesus Christ. Are you a believer in Jesus? Would you like to see all of your problems work together for good? Well, God desires a personal relationship with everyone. He took human form, and He walked the earth for 33 years in the person of Jesus Christ, and He paid our penalty for our sins with His own blood. This forgiveness of sin is available to all who accept Jesus' death for payment. It's a free gift. We can't earn it. And in gratitude, we choose to live our lives in ways that honor and please Him. Our problems now have a purpose: to conform us into the image of Jesus. And when we die, we'll be able to spend eternity with God instead of suffering in hell for eternity. If you'd like to become a Christian, just pray with me right now. Dear Jesus, I know I'm a sinner. I believe that You are God in the flesh and that You paid the penalty for my sins. Please forgive me of my sins and save me. Help me to live the rest of my life for You. Amen. If you've prayed this prayer for the very first time today, please write this date on your calendar. Today is your spiritual birthday. And please shoot me an email at cherylpickford@gmail.com so I can help you get started in your new walk of faith. Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed this message, please click the like button at the bottom of the screen. And if you subscribe to this YouTube channel, you'll be automatically alerted when a new message is posted. And also, please feel free to share this message on all of your social media platforms. And may God richly bless you until we meet again.